the cursed tarot cards. Never ignore signs that read "Do not enter," especially when you're in a secluded country house far from civilization. It's a lesson that Jack, Tom, and Brian learned too late. The three friends had gone for a weekend getaway to an old house belonging to Tom's family. It was his grandmother's house, situated on the edge of a forest, draped in moss and the mysteries of the past. Surrounded by dense woodland, the house was the perfect retreat from the hustle and bustle of city life. That evening, they held a lively and noisy party, filled with plenty of drinks and snacks. Their laughter echoed through the house, filling the night with a sense of foreboding. By midnight, when their alcohol supplies had run dry, the friends decided to explore the house in search of more. They rummaged through cupboards and shelves until they came across a large locked door leading to the basement. A sign on the door read, "Do not enter." For them, it was just another adventure waiting to happen. "Something must be down there," Jack laughed, rummaging through a bunch of keys he found in the cupboard. "Hey, maybe we shouldn't mess with it," Brian said uncertainly. "Remember what Tom's grandmother said about curses and ghosts?" "It's just stories," Tom said, trying to sound confident. "Let's see what's in there." They found the right key and, with eager anticipation, unlocked the door. The staircase led down into a dark, damp basement full of old belongings. They turned on their phone flashlights and began to explore. On a far shelf, something was faintly glowing. "What's that?" Brian asked, approaching the shelf. Before them stood an old box with a candle carved into the lid. They carefully took it and went back upstairs. Sitting around the kitchen table, they opened the box. Inside were tarot cards with hand-painted illustrations that were truly chilling. "Guys, these cards are really strange," Sham said, examining the images. Each card depicted scenes of unspeakable horror, skeletons, ghosts, and demonic creatures that had no place in a standard tarot deck. Jack picked up one of the cards and felt a shiver run through his fingers. "We should show these to Sarah," Jack suggested. "She knows how to read tarot cards." Sarah, their friend, was known for her tarot reading skills. They called her, and within half an hour, she arrived. "You guys are lucky," Sarah said, examining the cards. "But there's one rule. Never read someone else's cards." The guys were not deterred and convinced her to do a reading. Sarah agreed and began the reading. Each of them drew positive cards. She predicted wealth for Jack, career growth for Tom, and a long, happy life for Brian. "This is amazing," Tom said in awe when the reading was done. "We're really lucky." Returning home, they went to bed, unaware of the horrors that awaited them. The next morning, they drove into the city. On the way, they stopped at a store, and Jack unexpectedly won a large sum of money in the lottery, just as Sarah had predicted. They parted ways and went to their separate homes. That evening, Jack was at home, talking on the phone. Suddenly, he heard a knock at the door. He looked out but saw no one. Returning to the room, he heard the knock again. This time, he noticed a staircase leading up to the attic and heard eerie laughter coming from above. Climbing the stairs, he suddenly saw a figure in a black hood. The figure grabbed him and threw him down. Jack fell, and an unseen force raised the ladder, striking him repeatedly on the leg, causing excruciating pain. The repeated blows led to his death. Neighbors found him the next morning, dead and mutilated. Sarah had seen the ladder in the cards and thought it symbolized career growth. The next day, as Tom walked through a dark alley, he noticed someone in a black cloak with a scythe standing behind him. Terrified, he started running, but couldn't escape the pursuer. In desperation, he ran to the subway and a train crushed him. Sarah had seen a warning in the cards to watch where you step and thought it meant financial gain. On the third day, Brian was walking through the park. Returning home at night, he heard laughter and saw a figure in a cloak with a scythe behind him. He ran into the building but couldn't find anyone in the hallway. He dashed to the elevator, went up to his floor, and again saw the eerie figure. The police found him dead, strangled, with no signs of struggle. Sarah had seen a long and happy life in the cards. Sarah began to age rapidly. She went to hospitals, but no one could help her. Returning home, she found the tarot box. Turning it over, she saw the inscription. Whoever reads these cards becomes the bearer of their curse. Sarah realized she had become a cursed witch and had killed her friends. Desperate, Sarah faked her death for her family and moved back to the country house, taking the cards with her. Each night, she heard the voice from the box demanding a sacrifice. Her life had turned into an endless nightmare where she was a puppet of an ancient curse. Now, living in isolation, she was forced to provide sacrifices to quench the box's thirst. On nights when the wind howled outside, Sarah heard the voices of her deceased friends accusing her of their deaths. She knew that the only way to escape was to find a replacement, so she lived, each night preparing for the next victim, cursed by eternal darkness and terror. The story of the three friends and the mysterious box became a legend in those parts, and the house on the edge of the forest turned into a symbol of unspeakable horror. Anyone who dared to come near the house heard whispers and laughter emanating from within. They knew the curse was still alive and that the house still demanded its victims. Years had passed since Sarah had moved into the old house. She had long since become part of that place, her life a continuous night filled with whispers and shadows. The box remained on the table, its ancient curse still hanging over the house. One night, when rain was tapping on the windows and the wind howled like a hungry wolf, there was a knock at the door. Sarah, accustomed to strange sounds, went to answer it. A young man stood on the doorstep. His face was wet from the rain and his eyes glowed with curiosity. "Hello, I heard this house was unoccupied. May I stay here for the night?" he asked, his voice trembling from the cold. Sarah knew this was a sign. She let him in, offering him hot tea and a place by the fireplace. "My name is Alex," he introduced himself, warming his hands. "I'm a researcher, studying old legends and curses. This house has a bad reputation." Sarah felt her heart race. Her box had found a new victim. "This house is indeed full of mysteries," she said, trying to sound calm. "I have something that might interest you." She took out the box and placed it in front of Alex. His eyes lit up with interest as he saw the cards. He began to study them, and Sarah watched as his face slowly lost confidence. "Those cards, they're unusual," Alex said, standing up. "I need to leave. I have to tell others about this." He stood up, preparing to leave, but Sarah felt she couldn't let him go. She knew the box would not let him leave so easily. "Wait," she said, touching his hand. "Stay. The night is still young. Perhaps you should spend it here. I can offer you some more ancient artifacts to study." Alex hesitated, but eventually agreed to stay. Sarah felt her heart pounding with fear and anticipation. Each night, when a victim arrived, the box demanded its due. That night, Sarah heard the voice from the box louder than ever. "Bring me a sacrifice." When morning came, Alex had vanished. His belongings were left in the house, but he was nowhere to be found. Sarah was certain the box had been satisfied once more, but her life hadn't become any easier. She was still cursed and knew that her only way to escape was to find a new victim to delay her own fate. The box remained in the house, and the tale of the cursed tarot cards continued to live on in local legends. Each person daring to come near the house heard whispers and laughter coming from inside. They knew the curse was still active and that the house still demanded its victims. No one dared to enter, for they knew that each movement and every step could be their last.